Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Animal Liberation Hour, where we seek insight from animal rights and liberation activists around the world so that we can think, reflect, learn, and be inspired. Today's episode is my interview with M.C Ronen, who is a fiction author from New Zealand. She also goes by Maya, and I spoke to Maya about what it's like being an author, why she wanted to become a vegan fiction author. We talk a little bit about the role that creativity plays in the movement and a whole lot more. But before we get into the episode, I want to remind you that the Animal Liberation Hour is a project of Animal Activism Mentorship. AAM is a free multinational program that helps aspiring animal rights activists, as well as those who are already activists but want to take their activism to the next level. From one-on-one mentorship to free workshops and trainings to this podcast, AAM seeks to empower humans to fight for animals so that the world will have more activists and we can achieve liberation sooner. For more information, visit animalactivismmentorship.com and follow AAM on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Animal Activism Mentorship. You can keep up with the Animal Liberation Hour on AAM social media as well. Animal Activism Mentorship is fueled by Farm Animal Rights Movement. Without further delay, M.C Ronen. Today I have M.C Ronen, also known as Maya Cohen-Ronen, and I am grateful to be talking to her today. How are you doing today, Maya?
I'm really, really good, and I'm so happy to be here with you and everyone else who's listening. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. First, I just want to know a little bit about you and your path to veganism and animal rights.
Yeah. So we're talking, you're in the USA and I'm in New Zealand, in Wellington, New Zealand. I haven't been vegan all my life. I had quite a normal middle-class childhood, brought up with, for me, loving animals meant loving the pet dog that we had and pretty much just nothing else, really. It never really bothered me, anything veganism, vegetarianism, it was so far away from me. I remember I grew up next door to an egg farm. And I remember the noise the hens were making. It was pretty much constant. My mum would send me to fetch some eggs sometimes from the lady neighbor. And I remember how much I hated going, because I really hated with passion going into the shed. Because she would, oh yeah, come with me, you can choose your eggs. And it was just so stinky and it was putrid. It was really hard to breathe inside, and all the eggs were covered with feather hair, the feathers and poo, what you get on it, and blood. It was just so gross. I remember just hating this as a child. So I guess that kind of stayed with me, but it never made me think very deeply into it further down the track. The big change came for me. My son was born in 2004. That's not the year of change, but that kind of started things rolling in the right direction, I suppose. Because when he became a toddler, around 2-3 years old, he developed great fascination with sharks. Real deep fascination with shark. We would try to put our hand on any book, any movie, anything that has to do with sharks. And I didn't know anything at all about sharks. I knew hammerhead and great white, basically that kind of sums up what I knew about sharks, and that, great white sharks eat people. And because he was so taken with sharks, and we were fascinated through his eyes, through the awe and wonder in his eyes. We kind of felt that as well, and we tried to facilitate and help him to learn more, and through him we learned more. And I opened up, and I found a whole world of abuse, exploitation, destruction. I learned that actually sharks don't really eat people. Mostly it's by mistake that they take a bite. They think they're seals, but what we do to sharks is pretty much annihilation for shark fin soup and God knows, or bycatch from deep trout fishing. And basically we're destroying the oceans. And it really shocked me at the time. And of course, I wanted to do something, and I discovered Sea Shepherd. I didn't know about them before then. And I bought into their actions because, they're fighting for the sharks and the dolphins and the whales. And because, I didn't even realize that people were still whaling. To me, it was like something taken from a 19th century, I don't know, Captain Ahab. And it just didn't register that this was still happening today. I was so disconnected with what was going on in the world. And I realized that actually dolphins, whales, they're still hunted brutally today in the Southern Ocean, everywhere, also in the Northern Ocean, in Japan, in Cove of Taiji, and Scandinavia, in some countries, and by the grind, I don't know how to say it correctly, in Faroe Islands. It's just everything. When you open up to the truth tends to overwhelm you, and it did. And I had this kind of fascination, and I had this kind of a dream, because my son was just very, very young. And I thought, one day when he's older, we'll go on a Sea Shepherd ship, and we'll go to the Southern Ocean, and we're going to, chase away the whalers, and we're going to, I had this dream, and what you see on the TV show. And it was great. I thought, this is how I'm going to save animals, right? Because I love animals. I just eat them. And it was 2012 that my daughter was born. And she was just a baby, still nursing and everything. And I'm not sure what actually prompted this, me finding this out. I think it's possible that one of Sea Shepherd's ships was coming to dock in the Wellington harbour. And I really can't recall exactly, but I found out that they keep a strict vegan kitchen on the ship, on every Sea Shepherd ship. And it just sounded so weird to me, because why would you make it difficult for me to come and, help you fight for the whales? I'm not vegan. Why do you, why are you vegan? It just sounded so extreme to me that you would ask this from your volunteers. And but I didn't leave it there, because it really interested me. I needed to know why, because obviously there was a good reason behind it, right? Otherwise they wouldn't be so strict about it. So I started looking for information. And as we know, even today, 10 years later, information is there, but it's not so easy to find. So it's not on the TV, it's not in the commercials. You need to look for it, because the industries have a lot of power, a lot of money, and they do everything they can to hide the truth or sell you false messages, lies, etc. And I went into obviously the internet, the web, and started digging. And very, I mean, when you look for the truth is there to be found. And I just realized, I just realized the reality of dairy and eggs. And I knew about the eggs because I've seen it as a child, and suddenly things clicked. But I have to say that as a mother to a baby, dairy struck me the hardest, because I just couldn't realize, I couldn't fathom the fact that as a mother, I didn't realize that all mammals need to be pregnant to produce milk from their breasts. I just, we are so brainwashed to believe that the cows give us milk, that you think that the cows always have milk. It's like a machine. It's like McDonald's with a cup. You can fill up your Coke. You just press it against the thing, and so yeah, milk is the same. You just go press on the tip, it comes milk. I just can't believe I didn't realize it before. It's unbelievable. And when I realized that, and everything that is the extra knowledge about dairy, that it's not just the cow needs to be pregnant and have a calf to give milk. It's that the whole forced insemination, how they shove their arms into their, basically, I don't know how to say it nice, butt, and and push the semen into the uterus, and then the cow is pregnant for 9 months, and once the calf is born, they're pretty much, there's nothing to do with calves, especially in New Zealand, because there's such an intensive dairying here, that there are so many calves, you can't even, there's no point in growing them for much, because there are like millions and millions of them. So they've been killed. They're taken to slaughterhouse at the age of 4 days. They're just babies. They can barely stand, and they're taken to be slaughtered at the slaughterhouse. It's so cruel. It's unbelievable, and the connection, of course, of a mother and a baby is instant. And to see the footage of cows crying and bellowing and running behind the trolley, taking the babies away from them, and and I'm not even talking about the udders who are full of this, feces and the urine where they paddle through to get their milk sucked out of their swollen and painful udders. Everything about it is just so cruel and unbelievable that we would do it. And I'm not even touching the fact that we don't need it because we're human and they're cows, and no animal in nature needs to drink maternal milk beyond a point of weaning. So, yeah, I think it overwhelmed me so much that I had to do. The decision to go vegan was pretty much instant. When I made the decision, I just knew it had to be there and then. There was no time to waste. There was no baby steps to take. There was nothing. I didn't know what I'm going to eat tomorrow because I had no knowledge of veganism. But I just decided, and I took that decision, and that's it. Overnight, I became vegan. And my husband was a vegetarian at the time, so I told him, we need to go vegan, and I'm going vegan. We need to all go vegan. He went vegan pretty much soon, very, very soon after, when he also researched and realized what's the truth behind dairy and everything else. And then the children, I gradually moved them to veganism, but it took about, I don't know, a few months, and then we were the whole household turned vegan. And that was pretty much it. I just learned my way through being vegan by myself. I didn't know any vegans around me at the time. I was pretty much by myself, learning as we went. it's 10 years ago, but it's like a lifetime ago how veganism was then compared to how it is now. It is so approachable now. Everything is at the supermarket. All the information, even though it's not, on the TV and the news, but it is so available now. You just need to want it and reach for it, and it's there. It wasn't so much so. Actually, I remember joining a vegan group on Facebook. There were less than 1,000. Now there's close to 10,000 on that group, but we were less than 1,000 then, and there used to be tours to the supermarket. So to show you where the vegan food was, because people, it's just so hard to find, and you would just guess your way through it. But we made it through. And after a while, it's funny when you turn vegan, because when you turn vegan, because you learn about the truth, what happens to the animals, because you think now that you know, and you will tell other people, you will instantly convince them to go vegan as well, because you didn't know, you found out, oh my gosh, now you're vegan. Okay, so you'll tell your friends and your family and everyone else. They don't know. So when they'll find out, they'll go vegan. But it's not how it happens. And it's pretty frustrating. And you try here and you try there, and you think, oh, I'm going to post this. I'm going to post this, and this is it. This will convince them for sure. And you can hear the crickets. Nothing, no one even likes it. Just people scroll through, and even if they watch it, it's not. If people are not ready for their message, they will not absorb a message. And the frustration was building inside me so much that I really needed to yell it, I really needed to go out and shout it and yell it and put it in people's faces and just make people see and make people hear and face it. And that's how I kind of found my path to activism, because activism is not only a way to bring the truth out in the public arena. It's also a way for you to channel your frustration, your anger, and your sorrow. And I don't mean channel it so it comes out as angry or frustrating. It's just when you stand with people who are like-minded, who are committed the way you are committed, good people that you connect with really on every surface and every level and soul and with your soul, and they're there with you, and we are all there for those who can't even, they don't know that we're there for them, but they can't even thank us. So it's such a bond, and it's such a elevating bond that all that frustration, all that sorrow, all that anger that's building up in you, it kind of it channels to come out in a way that is very beneficial, and it's very constructive, and it's very powerful. It's powerful, and I felt it from the first vigil I've ever joined, and I joined the vigil because I needed to do something, and I went into Facebook. I looked in my area. There was a vigil happening outside of a slaughterhouse. It wasn't under the animal save movement. At the time, there was no chapter here. I don't know if the save movement was even established yet, but I just joined them. There were about 10 people. All of them. I never met them before. It was the first time, and some of them are friends for life for me today, and we still do actions together. And we stood outside the slaughterhouse. I brought my own sign, and it was amazing. It was one of the most uplifting, empowering experiences I felt ever. And I just kept going since then. I kept going in my activism. It's varied because I am one of the I'm one of the founders, founding organizers of the Wellington chapter of the Animal Save movement. But that doesn't bound me just to do save actions. I do anything else that's going on in my area, or just travelable distance. As long as I feel that this is beneficial and will progress the cause, it's going to promote the cause in a way that is positive, and that will be a good effect to it. But also it has to be non-violent. And I mean non-violent in the matter that we are not violent. So we absorb violence from sometimes from the public, but we are never violent. So these are the two, I guess, two key elements that has to be part of a vigil or any activity for the animals for me to join. But I will do anything really. Disruptions, protest, vigils, bearing witness, outreach, demonstrations, anything.
It sounds really like your journey into motherhood, played a huge part in all of this. Not only learning from your son's, love for sharks and all of that, but also, making that connection with the dairy industry, which is definitely tied to motherhood. These cows, they're mothers, and they have their children taken from them, and the children have their mother taken from them, and their mother's milk taken from them. And I'm so glad you made that connection. So many mothers don't, and I think we're all a little embarrassed about how long it took us to really realize what dairy is. I didn't really make that connection until I was 27 years old, and I was telling one of my female friends about it. She's like, "Don't worry, I'm a female," and I didn't think about that till I was 31 years old. And it's crazy how I don't know if it's like how distracted we are or how hidden these things are, or a combination of both. And then what you were saying about community. I think community is so important, because those of us who make these realizations and want to do something about it, it's so beautiful to come together with like-minded people, and not only to make a difference for the animals, but in my experience, it's so good for my mental health, because it can be very isolating to think this way in a world that doesn't think this way about animals, and to be with people who sacrifice their time and sacrifice other things to be able to fight for the animals. It's a beautiful thing. And going further back in what you said, I remember being like a early 20s vegetarian watching whale wars on television, and I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I couldn't wait until the next episode of Whale Wars came on. If anybody listening hasn't ever seen Whale Wars, you should maybe try to find it somewhere and try to watch it. It was one of the coolest shows ever on television. It was incredible, and it really, these people are really putting themselves on the line to help the whales in our oceans. But all right, well, you've mentioned several forms of activism that you've done. Tell us about what kind of led you to use your writing skills to write the trilogy of books that you have. This is a trilogy of books that are fiction, but very based on reality, the reality of what animals go through. So if you could just talk about what inspired you to write those books and kind of what led you to that whole journey.
For me, writing the books really started with the fact that I'm a very keen reader. I always loved reading. I love thriller books and young adults, dystopia, suspense, everything that is fast-paced with twists and turns in the plot, cliffhangers, things that get your heart racing, basically. I'm not much of a, romantic thing, fiction. For me, I just need something that is fast and thrilling, or scary. And since becoming vegan, I realized that it started to become harder and harder for me to enjoy picking up just books and read. Any book that I would pick up, whether something that was recommended by a friend or on the media or a bestseller, it always had first noticeable is just speciesism. The speciesism is like racism and sexism, but with animals, with other species. It means both that as human beings we perceive ourselves to be above, worth more, and put on above the animals. So we perceive them to be of lesser value, and also as the masters, we decide which animal is worth more than other animals. So in that regard, we don't eat, in the Western society, we don't eat dogs. We value them as family members, what we call pets. But we would eat cows and sheep and pig and, chicken, even though they feel the same. They have the same ability to feel, to sense, to fear, and think and dream, same as the dogs, and of course same as us. But this speciesism is everywhere, in every book that you would pick up, because in many times the protagonist would be kind and caring. They would be depicted as someone who is someone you can look up to, but at the same time they would go and eat bacon sandwich and whatever. And it's once you start finding this on almost every page, this is very, very off-putting. And the other side to it is also complete animal cruelty. I mean, we all read, I don't know if we all read, but we're all familiar with a very famous trilogy of a dystopian world where there's a girl who is killing other teenagers just to survive on TV. She's a hunter, whatever you say. She kills animals, and that whole hunting element. I mean, I can't read that trilogy anymore. I can't even bring myself to watch the movies because, she is an aspirational hero and she's a female, so it's supposed to be feminist, right? Way. But she's also a killer. Not only she kills her own kind, but she kills animals too. And this is just an example, but this is everywhere. And there's another element that this is kind of recent, because in the last few years, veganism has grown so exponentially that, even authors who are not vegan, most people, a lot of people will know a vegan. They will have encountered a vegan in their life. And so authors who basically write what they know, and what they think, they would portray the vegan, if they include a vegan in the plot. The vegan is always portrayed like an obnoxious and person there to be a killjoy. Almost always a female. You'll never find like a well-built male, You won't find a Patrick Baboumian vegan in a book. You will find the neurotic female, or maybe a couple, maybe tied in with sexual preferences, etc. Because it's always quite negative and comical. It's almost a comic relief if you have a vegan in a plot. And this is so off-putting, and this is so wrong. And I found myself reading less and less, which was very sad because I really enjoy reading. I just started thinking. I always wrote to I even wrote a few manuscripts and I put them in a drawer and forgot about them. But writing is one of the things I enjoy doing most. And I decided, well, if I can't find books that are vegan friendly, and they don't have all the speciesism, the animal cruelty, and the mockery of vegans, then maybe I need to write one. And I was kind of toying with the idea of what it is that I'm going to write about. And it kind of hit me that I need to not only write a book for vegans to feel safe to read. So it's not just going to be a book that is written by a vegan for vegans. It really has to have another element to it. It has to be an outreach book. It needs to be a story that pre-vegans, I used to call them non-vegans, and then I heard Jane Velez-Mitchell say pre-vegans, and I loved it. So I use it too, because you need to believe that everyone has the power to change. So I decided to do to write a book that is also something that can grab pre-vegans and make them realize what's happening, as an outreach. Clearly I was going to write something in the same genre that I enjoy reading, which is dystopian, suspense, thriller, fast-paced, all that. And I was thinking what it is that I'm going to write that will help pre-vegans to put themselves in the animal's place and finally make the connections and realize the truth, what they're doing, what is happening. How do I convey the emotions that animals feel, what they're going through their eyes? And I was thinking what the plot would be, and I decided. I remembered as a young person, I read Animal Farm by George Orwell. I also watched the animation, and it's for a child. It's quite scary. It's quite terrible, especially the way the horse is sold to be made into glue. But in Animal Farm, the pigs, they represent humans. They are humans as well in Animal Farm, but the pigs and all the animals in the farm represent humans too. The book was about Stalinism at the time. And I decided that this is actually a good way to do it. So I turned it a bit on its head, and I decided that all the animals in my book will be human. And you might not even realize that when you start reading it. But when you start reading, you basically meet a girl in a farm. It's quite an odd farm that you can't leave. Enclosed community. It's pretty dark. It's pretty grim, but you don't realize it. So you kind of sucked into the whole plot until way, way into the book, the first book, The Shed, that you realize, okay, I'm reading something here that is a bit different. And of course, Sunny, my heroine, is actually a dairy cow, a human dairy cow. So her experience is the first. We are taken through her childhood and her relationship with a mother. Their only female is there, and it's kind of a broken relationship because obviously they separated them. And I'm not going to give too much away, but the thing is that the book is called The Shed because of the big imposing shed in the farm that young girls are not allowed to go in, only adult women. And even then, some of them never come back out. And Sunny is, of course, her path unavoidably takes her inside, and everything that happens inside and then outside. That's the story of The Shed, how she basically breaks out of her destiny to be a product and to end up in the slaughterhouse eventually. It's quite a fast-paced suspense book, I would say, borderline thriller, but not horror. There's no really gory parts. I mean, so it's okay for, I would say, teenagers 15 and over. I mean, my son read it when he was 13. So if you're a parent, you can judge. But I would say depends on your child maturity, but 13 is probably all right. But formally it's 15 plus. Yeah, and so I wrote that. That was the first book. It came. So yeah, I started thinking about how to write it in about 2016, and I started writing it around 2017 because the way I write is I just basically incubate the story for a few months and until it forms. I wasn't sure in the beginning if I wanted to do dairy, maybe slaughter, would it be a boy or a girl, who would be my protagonist, but very soon I realized that it had to be a girl, that all my protagonists will be female, and that I would want to focus on dairy. And yeah.
Going back to what you said in the beginning, it is maddening when you're someone who's in tune to the suffering of animals, a very real situation that's going on every day, and you're just trying to relax and you're trying to enjoy something, whether it be a book or a movie or TV show, comedy, whatever, and you see that animal cruelty, and you, especially if you're an activist. I mean, everybody needs an escape sometimes, from reality, I think, in some form or another, and many of us turn to TV shows and books and movies and music for that. And yeah, I think for our mental health, we do need an escape, some form of relaxation, or entertainment. But yeah, it can be almost impossible to find something that is not going to snap you back into that reality of what animals go through every day. I mean, what animals go through is not something I ever want to forget long term, because I want to stay motivated to fight for them. But it is a marathon. It's not a sprint, and we do need some form of entertainment that won't snap us back into that. I mean, it can be so awful when you are just having a great time and laughing or something, at a funny show. And then, I know there was a show that I used to watch that was kind of like a prank show with, hidden cameras and stuff like that. And there were, it would make me laugh and laugh, but then, they would do a prank where they put somebody in with a bunch of like bugs or snakes or something, or they pour milk all over somebody, or something like that. And when the milk is the product of sexual abuse and violence towards animals, it's hard to laugh at that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm just so glad that you recognized that need and wrote these books. I've read all three, and they're captivating, insightful. They really make you think, and especially toward the end, very thrilling. And Yeah, I'm so glad that you recognize that, and I hope that'll be an inspiration to others who are listening to this, and others who have read your books. To think outside the box and be creative with their activism. So, how did you get the ideas for the stories and the characters, and who inspired you there?
Yeah. Um, yeah, so the first book really is about Dairy and Sunny. So obviously I needed a bunch of girls who are all cows-ish, and to represent that industry, that cruel industry. Some of them don't survive and choose, some choose freedom and some don't. And this whole relationship with the mothers, because Sunny's mother is quite dominant, but she's also absent. I actually have a friend who used to be a dairy farmer and now vegan activist, and she was extremely, extremely moved by the shed. And she said, everything that I wrote is so connected to reality, especially that broken relationship with the mother, and also the way the women, when they're milked, they are given kind of a substance that is a bit sedative. And they do give cows this kind of special food while they're being milked, so that they're calmer when the udders are being sucked dry. And there were a lot of things there that really touched sore memory for my friend. Um, the first book, when it came out and started to gain readers and started to be recognized, people started writing back to me, and not all of them were vegans. I had quite a lot of pre-vegans who wrote to me that they couldn't. The thing that people said the most was that they couldn't put the book down. But also what really encouraged me, especially coming from pre-vegans, is that they said they couldn't stop thinking about it. And I self-published the book, and I decided to make it pretty obvious that the author of the book is a vegan activist. It says so on the back cover, not hiding it. And also the last words of the book is, release your slaves, go vegan. So if you happen to miss the message all through the book, the last words of the book would kind of put the context very, very plainly. And it didn't put off very vegans, surprisingly. They did read it, and not only that, someone actually grabbed me at the supermarket and said, I read your book, I'm gonna give it to all my friends now. And someone who wasn't vegan. And yeah, so it did definitely click with people. And I was so happy, because this was the purpose of writing the book, was to make people click with the reality and make a change, and it seemed to be working. But the other thing that happened is that people wanted the story to continue. It's not a huge cliffhanger at the end of the first book, but there is kind of it begs to be continued. So people started requesting more, and I didn't even know if I had it in me to write more, but I started thinking, okay, how am I going to develop this story further? And I decided that I'm going to add more animal cruelty to animal practices, industries into this book to expand the playground, if you will, of my protagonists. So in the second book, Liberation, Sunny joins a very strong, powerful underground activist army. I don't know how to say it, but they're pretty militant. And her whole experience through, she basically grows up in that scenario, in that scene with these people. And so all the activists they live in a bunker. So this is obviously dystopian. It's post climate change. The Earth is basically unrecognizable. There are no animals. Basically, any people are left. It's pretty sparsely inhabited, and so the activists they're located in a bunker in a old military barracks that were left from our times, I guess, and we are exposed to wool. We are exposed to slaughterhouse. We are exposed to ring fighting between, quote, animals, dog fighting, um, um, and other things, other experiences that animals go through, using weak animals as bait, and etc. And I needed to fill up the bunker with activists. So I needed to name, we have a lot of activists, a lot of characters on the second one, but we focus on the key ones. So, Sunny meets someone, she falls in love. It's not a romantic story. It's not a romantic book, but there is a bit of romance because she is a teenager and she's got all her hormones and stuff, and she does fall in love. But that's not the focus of the book. And I needed to name all these activists somehow. And I decided just to do this homage for my friends and animal activists around the world that I knew. So I named them after my friends and people from Facebook that I just liked, and or even some of them after celebrities who are vegan or used to be vegan when I wrote the book, because some of them just changed their mind suddenly, like Miley. Shame. But when I wrote the book, she was this very, very vegan figure. So one of my activists called Miley. But yeah, so that's how I named them, basically, after real activists, real people, and that I used it as a way to thank them for what they're doing. There's no Trey in my book. We have met only recently. Sorry, Trey.
No offense taken. I'm sure those people were totally honored to have their names used in the book. I think that was a great idea. So yeah, I mean, that's great that pre-vegans were reading your book and really kind of responding to it. That's great. And I think all of us for the most part are taught to do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, but animals so often are actually very rarely are considered others, as far as others that we would treat the same way we would want to be treated. But in this book, what you've done is really put that in context on what if it were us treating humans this way, which I mean, obviously there's a lot of human issues in the world as well, but yeah, I mean, I think just putting it in this context is a great way for people to hopefully understand, and I'm sure that that's made a huge impact. How important do you think it is for people to get creative and use their special skills or talents for animal rights? I talk about this with people all the time. So many people don't even think that they have a special skill. I think so many people do, and they just don't realize that it can be applied to the animals in some way. So could you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I think people think that success comes overnight. So think, oh, I just wrote this little song, so what am I going to do with this? But success doesn't come overnight. It takes a hard work, and you need a lot of outreach and a lot of work to basically do your PR and make your talent and your gift known to the world and it does take a lot of effort. So, I could have easily just written something and say, oh, it's just this little book. I'm just here in New Zealand. What do I know about writing a book? What do I know about publishing? I'll just let some of my friends read it and end it there. But that's not how you make a difference. You need to, everything that we do is of value. Everything that we do for the cause, for the animals, to bring what my book is titled Total Liberation. This is what Sunny and her friends fight for. It's total liberation. And so to bring total liberation, which is a very, the path to total liberation is hard. We need to all join into this fight, and everyone has something to contribute. Being vegan is just the first step. You need to speak up for the animals, and there is the street activism that you can, and I really encourage everyone to take part in street activism. But I recognize also that not everyone is cut up for that, or feels empowered enough to do it. We try, and of course Animal Activism Mentorship is a lot about empowering people to feel secure and to do things for the animals out in the public. But some people just don't feel comfortable about it, but they just wrote a book, or they can write a book, or they can write a song, or they are artists. They create art or anything. They just make things out of nowhere. They garden, or they grow things. I don't know. There's endless things that people do that are unique and special and wonderful. It's your special power. It's what you do. It's unique to you, but it's wonderful. And so if you can harness that passion, and it's suffice that you enjoy doing that. Because I really enjoy writing. I did not treat it as a chore or something that, okay, I can't find a book, so I'll write it. I really enjoy writing. I feel alive, when I write, and I get that brain waves and the buzz and the excitement and can't wait to people to read this and all that kind of things that go with it. So if you are excited about this, and you enjoy doing whatever it is that you do, if you take photos, if you make movies, if you sing or dance, or whatever I mentioned before, pour yourself into it and harness this passion that you have with the other passion that you have for the animals and for total liberation, for veganism. Combine the two. And then start from there. I think it's so important that we, mainstream media still has very little of our voices represented in it. And so we really need to push more towards mainstream media. Push books into mainstream, push the songs, the music, everything. I love what Moby's doing, for example. What Joaquin did when he won the Oscar. Oh my God, blew my mind. Things like that, they happen. It's there. But everyone can do it. Everyone can do it. Success or recognition doesn't happen overnight. So just start, using your skill, creations, whatever it is that you love doing, and put it out there. Just it always takes just a first step, and then the path it starts to reveal itself. You think, what I'm going to do? I don't know. No one wanted to publish my book in the beginning because they thought it was a niche market. It's just a vegan book, so established publishing houses wouldn't know what to do with it. So I self-published. There's always a solution. There's always something else that you can do, and then suddenly the path becomes clear, and you know where to take it further and what to do with it. it's not always clear from the start. And it's not always, oh yeah, I released a song, now it's number one on the charts. It's often not how it happens. And you need to also be open to failure. Sometimes not that things don't work exactly the way you want them to be. But if you're willing to put the work, and we're all, activists, they put in the work. We go out to the slaughterhouse when it's raining, when it's cold and freezing cold and windy. So we do put ourselves out there when it's not convenient, when it's not nice outside. So why not do it with our art, with our creation, with special life force? We can do it the same way. It's not always convenient. I just had a conversation with a friend who is also an author, and she doesn't like to do a public speaking engagements, but we have to do that because that's how we tell people about the books and sell it and make people become aware of the books. She's also a vegan activist, I should add. And so, you have to be engaged and engaging and do things even out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I think we really need to. There's more work to be done in redefining what activism is, for sure, as well, because there's so many people who think when they think of the word activism, they think of street activism. And, I'm involved with street activism. Street activism is great. I especially like it when it's, pressure campaigns and targeting and, strategic, and all that. I especially like that. But, there's so many ways to help animals. Yeah, I've spoken to people that have said things like, oh, I really don't have time for activism because I'm too busy volunteering at the animal sanctuary. I'm like, that is activism, and we all need to understand that. And if there's anybody here that's listening that doesn't understand that, please recognize that anything that you're doing for the animals is activism, whether that's donating, whether that's doing something creative like what you've done, or getting out in the street, having conversations, posting online, making, food, working to help vegan food be more accessible to people. If you're a plumber and you go like help a sanctuary with a plumbing issue or an electrical issue, if you're just using your hands to, do manual labor or whatever it is, there's so many different ways to help animals, to be effective for animals. And yeah, in our movement, I think there's a lot more work to be done in redefining activism and celebrating, all kinds of activism, and everybody just understanding that activism has such a wide scope and so much value in other places.
It reminds me also when there was a World Earth Day or something like that at my workplace. I brought fake egg, so tofu scrambled egg sandwiches, and I used kalanamic, the black salt, to make it taste a little bit sulfuric, so it tastes a bit more like eggy. And people, it totally blew their mind. They couldn't believe that this wasn't real egg in there in the sandwich. So I had a demonstration just with my coworkers, how to make this. And I had the little kalanamic salt and some vegan mayonnaise and tofu. Basically, that's all I needed. A bit of maybe herbs, and I made it right there and then in front of them with a bit of turmeric, and put it in sandwiches. It blew their minds. They just never thought that you could replace egg sandwiches with vegan tofu. And it's just, even that in itself, I felt so good about it because I didn't even give it another thought. I thought, oh yeah, it's Earth Day, I'll do something, I'll give people something to eat. And it was so successful, and people were still talking about it today, months and almost a year later. It's just amazing. So every opportunity you have can be a good opportunity to outreach, to do something for the animals. Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, absolutely. So all that being said, what advice would you give to other creatives in the animal rights world, whether it be writing or some other form of creativity? What advice would you have for activists like that?
First, believe in yourself. Believe in yourself and just do it. Write it, do it, create it, whatever it is, and believe in yourself. This is absolutely the first step. And then you really need to, so once I discovered, from my own experience, that writing the book was actually the easier part. It was promoting it that was the hardest part, because you basically an unknown from down the South Pacific. How are you going to get people from America or from UK or Europe to recognize your books, to start reading them? But here we are, and we're talking together, so obviously that has happened. But it took quite a lot of effort. And so really you need to realize that you need to put the work into it, and socializing your book, your creation, it takes time, it takes effort, but if you're willing to put the work into it, then this will succeed. And if you don't succeed, at least you connect with other activists all over the world who are vegans and pre-vegans, and things just start to shape up and happen. But the real first thing you really need is to believe in yourself and to believe in your creation. And the other thing that I need to add also, and this is when things do start happening for you, is that you never lose the grounding, the connection to why you started in the first place, that this is all for the animals, this is all for a vegan world, to bring total liberation, not just in my books, but in reality. And so that grounding thought, that realization that this is not about me, and this is not about me being a success, this is about the books, this is about the cause, this is about the animals, this is the only thing that matters. So never lose that sight and that connection.
Yeah, definitely. That's beautiful. As artists in the world, and creatives, and just as people, believing in yourself can be such a difficult thing to do sometimes. So yeah, I think that's really powerful advice. I really appreciate you taking the time today to talk with us and speak your words of wisdom and share a little bit about your journey. If people haven't checked it out, Maya did a workshop through AAM about writing and publishing, and I hope everybody will check that out. Maya, before we go, are there any final thoughts you'd like to give?
I just wanted to really thank you deeply for inviting me, and I want to thank everyone who listened to us. I really appreciate your time, and you also took time out of your day to talk to me, so thank you. It's absolute pleasure. I feel so privileged every time people actually want to listen to what I have to say. And so I really, really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
It's been my pleasure. That was so cool. We stress all the time at AAM how there's so many different ways that you can get active for animals. Maya saw this void, for people who want an escape that are vegan. And, our mental health and having some kind of an escape is important to us as activists. So, it's great activism that she's doing, not only providing a fictional, space where we can kind of enjoy a story, but also, it's an outreach book, like she said, or a trilogy of books. So it's really cool that, she got really creative and made this happen. And I hope that you enjoyed that. And I hope that maybe it gets your creative juices flowing about, other kinds of activism that you can do. Thanks so much for listening. Please rate and review the podcast. It helps others find it more easily, and the more people that find it, the more people can hopefully be inspired to do activism, because they're inspired by the people on our show. If you enjoy the Animal Liberation Hour and would like to support our work at Animal Activism Mentorship, Please consider joining our Patreon for as little as $2 a month if you're able to do so. This goes such a long way in helping us grow the animal rights movement through mentorship. If you want to make a donation, but just a one-time donation, you can also do that through Cash App. Our Cash App is Donate AAM, all one word. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Animal Activism Mentorship, where you can keep up with the podcast as well as everything AAM. One more reminder that you can sign up for a free mentor to help you with your activism at animalactivismmentorship.com. If you needed a sign that you should be an activist for animals, this is it. Remember that it will take all of us to achieve animal liberation. Stay focused, stay positive, be effective, and keep doing your part. Until next time.